Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, enemies, and comrades, this is Kenyan Revolutionary. I hope you're doing well wherever you are. I'll just make a quick video about this G2G deal. You might be wondering, what is G2G deal? G2G deal is this, basically stands for government to government deal. Let me bring it back to context, the Kenyan context. Ruto wanted to make a government to government oil deal with Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, where Ruto, being the president of Kenya, he wanted the Kenyan government to buy oil from the Saudi Arabia government and the United Arab Emirates government by using a common currency, which is the Kenyan shillings. Okay? I know a lot of people are saying, they're clowning Ruto, saying, oh my goodness, what is wrong with you? Why do you want to use Kenyan shillings? Kenyan shillings is worthless. It has no, it has no value, you know. Aina value, you know. But most people don't understand how currency works, okay? That's why they were laughing and mocking Ruto. But if you know anything about what's going on globally as far as currency is concerned, is that the dollar is losing its value. It's worthless. I keep on telling you guys, go look at your history, okay? The dollar is the world reserve the world reserve currency, okay? But it's the world reserve currency because in 1971, under President Nixon, see, the dollar used to be backed by gold, okay? The dollar used to be backed by gold, okay? But now, since 1971, under President Nixon, the United States of America, currency, the dollar, the US dollar, okay? They decided to move away from the gold standard, okay? What is the gold standard? Do you know what the gold standard is? I want you to Google first of all. Gold standard means that for any dollar amount that you have, it represents a percentage of gold, okay? Which means that if you have $1, you can literally go to the Reserve Bank, Federal Reserve Bank, okay? And tell them, hey, listen, I have $1 here. This is enough to give me maybe an ounce of gold, okay? Because it is backed by gold. It is like owning gold, but instead of owning that actual stone rock of gold, they give you that dollar amount, which is like, let's say $1 or $2, depending on what amount of gold it represents, okay? So maybe if you take $1, you can go to the Reserve Bank, Federal Reserve Bank in this case, and they'll give you what it's worth, you know, in the amount of the rock, the stone, the gold itself, okay? So that's what I mean by the gold standard. But in 1971, like I say, under Nixon, the US dollar moved away from the gold standard, which means the dollar was not backed by gold. You could not go to the Reserve Bank and say, hey, listen, can I get a piece of a piece of gold for this dollar amount, okay? So the dollar is basically backed by nothing. It is worthless, all right? So since then, a lot of countries have always tried to stop pegging their reserve on the US dollar because they've realized that the US dollar is not backed by nothing. But what Nixon did, the US did, was they said, instead of now using the gold standard, they will make sure that any trade that happens in the sale of gold, because gold is the most common, in the sale of petroleum, oil, will be done in US dollars, okay? So they agreed upon that. So worldwide, you know, any transaction of oil that happens between anybody, any legal entity, whether it's a country to country or whatever, was to be done through dollars. You are going to trade in dollars. That's why you see everything in every stock market exchange everywhere in the world, they usually trade and measure it in US dollars, okay? But with time, most nations started questioning this because they were like, you know what? The dollar does not carry weight anymore. It's worthless. It's not backed by anything. Okay? So some countries said, you know what? We are not going to be buying oil in US dollars because US dollars it has lost its value. It doesn't have value anymore. So we want to use our own currency or other currency that we feel that is valuable. Okay? But, US is not usually happy with this. If you remember, Saddam Hussein, one of the reasons why Saddam Hussein was taken out from Iraq was because he made the pronouncement declaring that he will no longer trade oil in US dollars because he said the US dollars is worthless, it has no value, so he will trade his oil in euros, okay? And when the US had that, they were like, no, you can't do that. Because remember, Iraq was one of the top 5 oil producing countries in the world. So imagine if Saddam Hussein was alive and was transacting in euros, as far as, selling oil in euros, that would have diminished the value of US dollars further, thus bringing down the economy of the US, okay, collapsing the economy of the US. So the Americans says, no, you're not gonna do that. So they send in the troops and they came up with the bullshit, you know the story, weapons of mass destruction, and they took him out. Another one was Gaddafi. Gaddafi said the same thing. He said, you know what, because Libya is rich in oil. So he said, you know what, why can't we, the African continent, come up with our own currency that is backed by gold, okay? Currency that is backed by something, and let's not trade in dollars. Our oil, our commodities, we can trade in this currency, the Nero, okay, which will be backed by gold. And when the US had that, they said, Gaddafi is a terrorist, he needs to go. And indeed, they took out Gaddafi. You know the history. So back to Kenya. Just to wrap up, I'm not trying to make this video long. I'm just trying to give you a historical context of what happened with this G2G deal in Kenya. So Kenya, Ruto, earlier this year, the dollar was really losing its value, market value worldwide, okay? People are dumping the dollar. That's why you see a lot of people are going this BRICS. You know about BRICS, right? Brazil, Russia, China, India, and South Africa, okay? These are countries that they're about to launch their own currency that will be backed by gold, because the dollar, not only is it worthless, but it is very, it fluctuates. It's not stable, okay? Because every time the Feds, raises the interest rates, any currency that's pegged on the dollar suffers, loses its value, okay? And with the unemployment happening in the US and all that stuff, it's easy for the United States, to manipulate the interest rates to the Feds in order to devalue other people's currency that are pegged to the dollar. That's why the BRICS guys came up and said, you know what? We shall start this currency that is backed by the dollar. That way we have that's backed by gold. That way we can have a stable currency where we don't have to depend on the Federal Reserve. When the Federal Reserve raises or lower its interest rates, it will not affect the currency that is backed by gold, because gold is the gold standard. Its price is right there. It doesn't move up or down. It's pretty much stable. I mean, it goes up depending on how we're trading it, but for the most part, it's stable, okay? So that's why the BRICS, a lot of countries right now are moving away. You hear about Iran are dumping the dollar. Saudi Arabia say they'll start selling their oil in other currency. Russia dumping the dollar. Everybody's dumping the dollar because the dollar is valueless. It is losing its value. Nobody wants to use it anymore. It's being used to manipulate other countries' currencies, okay? So, coming back to Ruto, after I told you all that, I want you to consider that. So Ruto, earlier this year, okay, he said that he will have a government-to-government deal with the Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, meaning he will buy oil from Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates in Kenyan shillings. Now, people laughed, but it was actually a noble idea because his argument was this: if we buy this oil in Kenyan shillings, and most of these deals usually you don't pay once in bulk, okay? They usually give you the oil, you give them the down payment. Let's say if the total amount of, let's say you want 100 liters, okay, of oil. Saudi Arabia will give you 100 liters, and then they'll tell you, hey, listen, you can pay me, if the 100 liters is worth, let's say 5 million, okay? So Saudi Arabia will tell you, hey, instead of paying me that 5 million at once, because it's a huge amount, you can pay me 1.5 million every 6 months, okay? For the next 2 years, okay? I'm giving you an example, all right? So, within this 5-year deal that you've contracted with Saudi Arabia, making this 1.5 million per 6 months, okay? Currency always lose or gain value, okay? Depending on how you trade. Now, if the Ruto government, Kenyan government, if they were to peg their money, which we are doing right now, we are pegging our money on the US dollar. And if you're following the Forex exchange, the Kenyan shillings has been losing its value against the dollar. So in 6 months, okay, if we continue, if the Kenyan shillings keeps on losing its value against the dollar, that means that in the long run, in the next 5 years, we are going to pay more in the real value than the initial 5 million that we agreed, because we'll be talking about inflation, because the Kenyan shillings is losing its value against the dollar. So that's why Ruto did not want to use the dollar, because the dollar fluctuates. It's not stable, okay? And it's losing its value worldwide. It's not stable. But if Ruto was to use the Kenyan shillings, which that was the initial idea of using Kenyan shillings, the shilling was by itself, it's pretty stable, okay? We would pay a fixed amount, of course with the interest and all that stuff, but we can calculate and see we shall pay an X amount within the framework of the contract, okay? That's why Ruto used the Kenyan shillings. But when the US heard about this government-to-government deal between Kenya and Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, if you remember, the Meg Whitman, the US ambassador to Kenya, called Ruto and told him, hey, what is going on? Why are you trading in Kenyan shillings? You need to fix that quick, or else we'll remove you. You know the deal. So Ruto changed the terms of the agreement and told the Saudis and the United Arab Emirates that they will use the dollar in the deal, okay? And as you can see, most Kenyans, if you look at your news, the Kenyan shillings is losing its value against the dollar every freaking day. Just a year ago, it was 135. Right now, it's what? 149, okay, for every dollar. So you see what's going on. But anyway, this change brought about, of course, it made the deal. That means we'll be paying more high prices for fuel, because the Kenyan shilling is losing its value against the dollar in which we are using to buy this oil. You get it? Are you following? All right. But that's one part of the deal. So the reason why it was a government-to-government deal in the first place is because initially Ruto wanted to buy this oil in the local currency, which is Kenyan shillings. But the Americans heard about that and told Ruto, since he's a colonial stooge, they told him, hey, listen, you either use the dollars or we are going to take you out. Okay? So Ruto obliged, okay, of course, because he had no option. If America tells you that, and you have no options, okay? So anyway, the deal went on, and now they agreed on buying oil, Saudi oil and United Arab Emirates oil in US dollars. Got me? All right. So these companies that Ruto, the Kenyan government, was purchasing this oil from, they're not private companies. They're companies, they're oil companies that are owned by the Saudi government. Okay, so they're not private petroleum companies. They are government-owned companies. Okay. So anyway, the deal happened, but what is happening is this: the people, the tendering process, the people, the companies that got the tender from the Kenyan government to buy this oil from these Saudis and United Arab Emirates, that's where the question comes, because they bought this oil for an X amount of money, but the price that they were charging the Wananchi and even the Ugandans was an exorbitant amount of money. It was a little bit too high compared to any prices in the region. So that raises question. It brought about question. And that's what Raila was actually talking about. He was like, hey, listen, what's the deal with this? You know, the prices are really high. We are paying so high for fuel. What's really going on? Okay. So there lies the question. But Raila was also questioning the whole deal. He was like, hey, make this government to government oil deal public. Ruto today just announced and said the tender is public. Go check it out. It's legal. You can see who gets oil from where, what company, and whatever, so you can revise it. Okay? So they say there's nothing wrong with that. But the truth of the matter is this: the middlemen that Yoweri Museveni was talking about were actually inflating the prices of oil. They got it from Saudi for an X amount of money, and they overcharged the Kenyan citizens and even Ugandans. That's why Ugandans savored the deal, and they were like, you know what? We're going to get our oil through Tanzania, because you Kenyans are mna ukora mingi up. These middlemen are doing their own thing, okay? So in response, Dennis Itumbi tweeted yesterday, and he mentioned a company that Raila Odinga and his son and his brother have shares in. Okay, Raila Odinga Jr. and Oburu Odinga. What's the name of the company? Bree something. I forgot the name. Bree Energy or something like that. Okay, and then Situmbi said that Raila Odinga came up with this dossier, making all that noise about this deal because the government denied him some deal, you know. So he was bad. That's why he was. Now, all that can be debatable, okay? All that can be debatable. But one thing is for a fact: there's something fishy about why Kenyans are paying really high prices of oil compared to other countries. You know, we cannot use the excuse that the war in Russia and Ukraine is the reason why we're paying mafuta very high, okay? These middlemen is who we should find out what their deal is. But I gave you all that background history of what the reason why we were having government to government deal, and why that Ruto being forced to use US dollars actually made the prices go up. Because now, since we are pegging our currency on the US dollar, and Kenya is losing its value against the US dollar, this is making the price that we will pay the Saudis and the United Arab Emirates go higher. But all in all, the middlemen, the company that took this tender to buy oil on behalf of Kenyan government from the Saudis, are actually doing something that is questionable. And that's where we need the parliament, the legislative body, to actually probe this issue so we can find out and get to the bottom of it and see why a lot of Kenyans are paying these prices of gas up. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, all I'm saying in summation is that Raila is being cheeky in a way, but he has a good point by stating that these middlemen are up to no good. The government, you know, they have a reason why they changed it to dollar, and there's a reason why the price of oil was up, but they need to be transparent, not only transparent, but explain why these middlemen they're charging Kenyans high prices, more than the market value, to buy this, this mafuta. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, enemies, and comrades, I hope you enjoyed this video. My name is Kenyan Revolutionary. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Share, like, comment. Tell me what you think. If you disagree with me, tell me in the comment section. If you agree with me, tell me in the comment section. I will like it, and I'll highlight your video. And I'll be going live later on this today. But again, like I say, make sure you just comment, like, share, and subscribe. Watch on Chezo. Hit that subscribe button, okay? And I'll talk to you guys later. Peace and blessings.